welcome! Today I'll show you how to crochet a scrunchie using the tube method. Basically, you'll crochet a long, thin piece of fabric, you'll fold it in half the long way, then sew it onto your hair tie. You can use any stitch you'd like. I used double crochet to make this. Now materials you'll need, of course, you'll need some yarn. Use any weight or any brand. I used Hobby Lobby's I Love This yarn in Orchid, which is number 290, and Amethyst, which is number 292. Now whatever yarn you're using will have a recommended crochet hook size. Now I used this Boyer ergonomic handle 5.75 millimeter crochet hook, or US size J. Now you'll use whatever hook size is recommended for the yarn that you are using. You'll also need a pair of craft scissors, a yarn needle, some hair ties, and a ruler. I know this seems odd, but you will see why it's absolutely essential here in just a minute. Let's get started. All right. Before we start crocheting, we need to do some math. Go ahead and get your ruler and one of your hair ties. We are going to measure exactly how far our hair tie can stretch and do some math with that number. Now I'm a bit of an outlier. Even though I live in the United States of America, I prefer to use the metric system, so I will be using centimeters today. You're welcome to use inches. All the math will be the same. You'll just have a different number starting out. So I'm going to line this up right here, put my hair tie at the very beginning, this 0 centimeter spot. I'm going to stretch it as far as I can. It looks like I can get this about 16 centimeters wide, so I'll make note of that. Now that our scrunchie has to be able to go around both sides of our hair tie, not just one piece. So that means I need to take that 16 centimeters and double it. That will give me the bare minimum how long my flat piece of crochet needs to be in order to make it around the scrunchie without being inhibited. I like to add about another 25%, and you can round as much as you'd like, but I found that 25% gives me some good leeway. So just to show you some of my maths here, so I started with 16 centimeters multiplied by 2 brings me to 32 centimeters. Multiply that by 1.25, so that's adding 25%, and that brings me to 40 centimeters long. Now I don't know exactly how many rows it's going to take me to get to 40 centimeters long, but I'll just check in here and there as I go until I get to that point. Another thing we need to measure is how wide we want our crochet scrunchie to be, how big we want our ridge. So I have this other scrunchie that I made when I was very first testing this out, and I'm pretty happy with how wide this is. I think it gives it a really good look. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm just going to measure across. Looks like it's about 6 centimeters wide. Now same thing, I need that to go in both directions, so I'll need it to cover the front and the back of my tube. So I will take that 6 centimeters, multiply it by 2, that gives me 12 centimeters wide. Once I have all of these numbers, I can start crocheting. Now that we have all of our measurements, I'm ready to start crocheting. Now I'm going to bring my ruler back into this because I know I want this to be about 12 centimeters wide. So I'll just check periodically as I'm chaining to see how close I can get to that 12 centimeters wide. I'll go ahead and take my yarn. I am starting in Orchid rather than Amethyst. I'm going to leave a rather long tail for sewing. I'm going to make a slip knot. Now you can use whatever method you would like. This is just how I do it. And if you need assistance with the very basics of crochet, how to chain, how to single, double, half double crochet, treble crochet even, I do have links for that. I will put a link in the description box below. That way you can see all of my existing stitch tutorials. Now I'm going to start just with simple chain. I'll go here just for a minute, and then I will measure to see how long it is. All right, let's measure really quickly. This, it looks like, is about 8.5 centimeters wide. Let's go just a little farther, shall we? All right, now it looks like I've overshot just by a little bit, but that's okay. So I'm just over here 12 centimeters, which I am perfectly content with. Now let's take that ruler and set him to the side. Now, as I told you before, I'm going to be using double crochet for this tutorial, but you can use whatever stitch you would like. Once you get your base as long as you would like it, You'll need to add some chains to the end so that we can actually work our stitches. If you want to single crochet, you'll chain 1. If you want to half double crochet, you'll chain 2. If you want to double crochet like I'm doing, you'll add 3. If you are half double crocheting, if you are treble crocheting, you will add 4 chains. So I'm going to just 1, 2, 3, and I will work in not the second, not the third, but this 4th chain from the hook. And reminder, this little loop that goes over my hook here does not count as a completed chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll go ahead and work here. Yarn over, and I'll just double crochet all the way across my work here. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Alright, and I haven't bothered to count so far. Let's see just how many double crochet I've done. So this is my chain from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I am doing 16 double crochet wide. Now I'm going to chain 3, turn my work, and I'm going to keep going. Alright, here I am at the end of my second row. I'm going to continue to do one more row in this color, and then I will do a color change. If you are just using one color, feel free to keep going until you hit whatever length you have chosen or that you have done the math for. I'm going to do one more row, and then I'll come back to you and show you how I'll do that color change. Okay, here I am near the end of my third row. I've left this last stitch undone, and I will show you how I'm going to do my color change. So assume crocheting position. We're going to continue just as we would normally would. But before I do my last yarn over and pull through, I'm going to bring my strand of my new color in. Now I'm going to leave a sizable tail for sewing in as we for sewing our pieces together as we go. I'm going to just bring a loop here onto my chain or onto my hook and use that to yarn over and do my last pull through to complete that double crochet. Now I'll chain 3. I'll go ahead and just really quickly put a little itty bitty loose knot here. Ooh, if I can get my fingers to work. Just so it doesn't unravel as I go. It does not need to be tight, and I will be undoing this later. Perfect. Now that I've done my color change and I've chained 3, I can cut this little guy. And again, I'll leave a nice little tail for the end. Boop. Get rid of that orchid. Perfect. So this is my yarn tail from the very beginning. These are my 2 little yarn tails from our color change. And this color again, my colors I'm using orchid, then amethyst. So now working in amethyst, I'll go ahead and do 3 more rows of double crochets, and then we'll come back at that point and measure. Alright guys, I have finished up the 3rd row of amethyst right here, and I'm going to show you one more color change. So just like before, I'm going to yarn over, work most of my double crochet just as usual. Then when I have only 2 loops on my hook, right before I do my last yarn over and pull through, I'm going to take my new color, so this is coming back to orchid, bring a loop on my hook, pulling through 2 to complete my double crochet. I'll do my chain 3 before I turn. Perfect. Then these 2 little strands, I'll put just a very, very loose knot in. Again, this does not have to be tight, and I will be undoing it later. Ooh, good glory. Perfect. And now I can turn and continue working in orchid. Now I'm going to do the rest of this off camera, and I will come back to you when I have a piece of fabric, a crocheted little piece that is this 12 centimeters wide and 40 centimeters long. Welcome back, everybody. I have made it to the end of my very long piece of fabric here. Now I have most of this just on my lap. I ended up taking this to about 48 centimeters instead of stopping at 40, just because I wanted to end at the amethyst. That way I had an equal number of this orchid and amethyst, so I didn't have two stripes in the same color. Now I'm going to cut this yarn. If you have only used one color and you aren't doing this back and forth kind of thing, you're going to want to leave a really long tail, at least as long as your piece of fabric is long. That way you can use that for sewing all the way in. Where I have used multiple colors and I have these little bits on the side for sewing in, I'm just going to leave, I don't know, maybe about 6 inches. Perfect. I'll pull this through. I'll grab my yarn needle. I always like these Boyer yarn needles. You can use whatever yarn needle you have. There is no need to ever get fancy, especially not with me. I'm going to thread my yarn needle, just like so. I'm going to get my 2 hair ties, and again I'm using 2 hair ties for this. There's no need to do that necessarily. If you have rather thick hair, I recommend it, but most people do not need 2 hair ties. Now I'm going to run this just back through here to make a little bit of a tighter knot. Ooh, nope, that's not what I want. Right there. Now I am going to pull the edge of this through. Oh, can't even see what I'm doing. The edge of this through my hair tie, just like this. Now I'm going to sew these 2 pieces together this one piece of together like so. That way I'm making a very long and thin tube all the way around. So we'll start here, and I've done double crochets, so I'll put 2 stitches into each, stitch. Perfect, and now I'll go to the bottom of this row's double crochet. Use whatever sewing method you would like. I like to do this just back and forth. I believe this is mattress stitch. Top of row 2, top of row 2, bottom of row 2, bottom of row 2, top of row 3, top of row 3, bottom of row 3, bottom of row 3. Now I've gotten to my first color change. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to tie a knot right here using my 2 amethyst ends, just like so. Get it nice and tight. Now I will weave these ends in later, but just for now, have a nice little knot here. Now I'm going to swap over and use this orchid piece to sew in my next section. That way we don't have an awkward bit where I'm using a darker yarn to weave into a lighter section. Easier to just save these little yarn bits and go like this. I'll go through the top of row 1 of this opal, or not opal, orchid, bottom of row 1, top of row 3, and I'm already, as you can see, starting to run out of ends, so maybe I should have left these ends even longer. You never know. Bottom of row 3, bottom of row 3. Now I'll take this and tie it again to my orchid strand that's right here. I think I keep saying opal. This color is orchid, not opal. So if I say opal, just know that I'm filming this at almost 1 a.m. and am just going a little bit crazy. And now I will, where'd my amethyst strand go? Oh, it's right here. Holy crow. All right, now I'll thread my amethyst section yarn bit from here. And now I will sew this section. Now, all right, guys, here I am again. I have been working on this for a while. It's starting to look rather insane, especially with all of these little bits hanging off. Now, what I'm going to do in order to keep working around is, instead of trying to work stitch by stitch through here, I'm going to pull through an entire color change and work on one color change at a time. And if you're doing all one color, that's totally fine. You can do this just 2 or 3 rows at a time, pull them through, stitch them together, and then pull through the next section. Now I'm going to work through and get to this very end. Once I have the very ends here sewn into a tube around this elastic, I will check back in with you guys and show you the next step. Welcome back. I have stitched my very last bit together. Now this is that long starting tail that I told you about when we did our very first chain to start this whole mess. I am going to, let's put this guy to the side there, make another knot in here, connecting the bit I was sewing to the bit I got to at the bottom, my starting yarn tail. I'm going to thread this starting yarn tail, and I'm going to go around and sew this opened end to this opened end. Now I have this in such a way that the bits that I was sewing together are on the outside of my little wheel here. So I am going to connect this right here, the outside, to the outside of this purple guy. So this is the bit I sewed together. That's where I'm going to connect my yarn, right here. Well, and this is not terribly difficult, but just maybe, if anything, a little bit tedious. Now I'll just go in and out, stitch for stitch, all the way around here. All right, guys, I've worked my way right back to the beginning of the round that I started stitching together, and this is all I have left of that really long yarn tail that I had at the very beginning. So in all reality, probably should have left it even longer, but that's okay. I might just make a note earlier in the video saying possibly go longer. Now I'm going to knot these two ends together. Perfect. And now I have an assembled scrunchie. Oh, I am so thrilled with how this is turning out. We ended up with 6 rows of 3 in each color all the way around. I think this is just fantastic. Now my next step is I'm going to weave in all of these ends, and there are so many ends to weave in. The only real note that you're going to need here, if you have all these little tails from changing colors, is if, for example, you want to weave in these 2 yarn tails, don't weave the opal, and by opal I mean orchid. Am I going to do that all night? But don't weave the orchid into the amethyst or the amethyst into the orchid. Try to weave in your ends into the same colored area. I also, this right here is the outside. This is the bit that I have sewn together. I'm going to try to keep my ends sewn into this area. That way, when I'm all done, I can flip this ridge towards the inside so it is slightly less visible as well. I'm going to weave all these in, and I will come back to you once I have this all finished. Congratulations on your finished scrunchie! Now, I've walked you through how to make this exact scrunchie, the one I just made with you today. But this pattern is only limited by your imagination. You can use different weighted yarns, different hook sizes. You can really do whatever you'd like with this. So for example, for this guy, I used DK weight or weight 3 yarn and also held a piece of thread with it and crocheted all the way around. This gives me a really cool look. I really, really love this, and I am totally going to use this all the time. You can also use, I use nice thick Bernat baby blanket yarn in this one as well. It feels so cozy, so wonderful, both in my hands and in my hair. It is fantastic. Thank you for watching this video. As always, there will be more videos coming up, both for individual stitch tutorials showing you how step by step to make a crochet stitch and beginner friendly patterns just like this one. Thank you again for watching. Ta-ta for now.